What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Hansen's Hints here at fantasypoints.com and the fantasypoints.com podcast feed. I'm John Hansen, and I'm the dude supplying the hints. Took a little vacation last week in early July, somewhat refreshed here, ready to rock and roll. We did turn that calendar and flipped it to July. Training camp's opening up. Draft season is just around the corner if it's not here already. So we thought, talking with the guys there, our guys Scott Barrett, Tom Brawley, Joe Dolan, Graham Barfield, we thought it would be a pretty cool idea to do an article and a podcast for each draft position this year, and also utilize the Fantasy Points generator to help us navigate the draft and optimize the draft. And if you're watching this on the video channel on YouTube, this is a podcast, but it's also a little video screen presentation, if you will. It's also can serve as a little bit of a tutorial to that Fantasy Points generator. What is the Fantasy Points generator? Well, it is a tool that uses intelligence and analytics to make optimal recommendations for each of your picks to maximize your draft, your startup keeper draft, or your redraft league here in a season-long environment here. So without any further ado, we'll launch the generator. We're going to be doing a mock draft, basically, my draft plan in action with, all my players to target. We'll try and choose the optimal route in terms of roster construction. That's kind of the whole point here. We're trying to find the optimal route in terms of what rounds do we draft, what positions and the like. So we'll work through it. And I do believe I have come up with what is, at least now as of early July. I don't think the ADP is going to change much, only a few individual bases in terms of injuries. But I think we're probably going to be locked into this ADP, at least at the top. So we're going to do a draft here, drafting out of the one spot, 12-teamer. I think I'll go like 10 rounds, which is 120 picks. That should be a starting lineup for most. So we'll launch the Fantasy Points generator. If you're just listening to the podcast, try to make this as painless as possible. But we are here on the setup page. We'll call this Team number 1, 2023. We're going to pick the draft position number 1 over here in the upper left. We'll do 15 rounds, I guess, for now, even though we're not going to probably go through all 15 here. We'll pick a flex position here. We got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end. You know what? I think I might even just skip the kickers and the defenses. Can we please go with 0 there? You know what? I like that. So let's do that, and let's mimic the Fantasy Points Dynasty League, which we eliminated the kickers and the defenses, and we've never looked back. Don't miss them at all. We do use 2 flexes, though, so we'll do that, and we'll set it up to scoring and PPR. You can do standard, half a point. You can do 1.5 for tight end. You can do import the scoring from our friends at the FFPC. It's all here, but we'll go PPR. That is our preferred format here. We'll name our team G, G for Gurific, and we are done with the setup here. We're ready to save the league. Oh, we got to check off these 2 flex spots right here. We just did that, and we're ready to save, and we're ready to rock and roll. We are on the clock. You can see the interface here if you're watching the video. It's very, very self-explanatory, but we'll work through it and show you what's up. You can check off Hansen's Hints, which means, as you see in the caption here, select this option if you want to have a combination of analytics with John Hansen's drafting knowledge and strategies built into the recommendations. So I put through a first wave of nuances and scenarios to map out some intelligence here from inside my brain. I do need a few more tweaks that will be up live by mid-July, well before peak draft season. And by the way, you can use this tool to do your real draft. You just have to manually fill in the picks. It's actually not bad to find the players to take them off the board, and then draft your own player. Manually track your draft. It doesn't plug into your software. But it is, I think, a great mock draft tool. So if you get your draft spot, I'm picking out of the 5-hole, you're not sure, how to go, you can mock it out, practice drafting. It's really sharp drafting. The ADP data is dynamically updated. It's the freshest, most current data. And you'll find with the software, real drafts are funny. Life is funny. Weird things happen. That's kind of in play with the Fantasy Points Generator software. It mainly goes off of ADP, but not completely, not 100%, because what draft goes completely to ADP? None. So, we factored that in. So you'll find that interesting, hopefully, if we get a recommendation or two. There's some other things we could check off here, like for each pick, we can toggle to, what are we focusing on for the pick? Starters, depth, or in between. So right now we'll keep it in between. Once again, we're on the clock, so we're going to get our recommendation. And here we go. Right out of the gate, cutting across the grain with the number 1 pick, despite the fact that Justin Jefferson is projected to score more points. Software's saying, in Hansen Sense mode at least, to take Jamar Chase. And that's accurate, because that's what I would do this year with that number 1 pick, trying to catch lightning in a bottle, trying to catch Jamar Chase's big rookie year, the big year that earns him the big payday, basically the year that Justin Jefferson had last year. We'll see if Jefferson can match it. I'm sure he probably can. But Chase did some serious damage last year, seriously hobbled as well. So we're hoping for a clean bill of health, and we're all in on Jamar Chase. So now we're going to mock draft to our next pick. You can see, if you're watching the video, you can see the draft report, all the players who have gone off the board thus far. Very wide receiver heavy. Jefferson, Tyreek, Kupp, Diggs, A.J. Brown, C.D. Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra, Waddle, Olave, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, all off the board before I make my second pick here, drafting out of the 1-hole in a 12-teamer. We'll see what the software has to say about this. And, well, it's going with the optimal pick of Ramondre Stevenson. That's under Hansen's Hints. Let's uncheck that just to see. And there it is. It's recommending Jalen Hurts, which I would not recommend. That's why when you check off Hansen's Hints, if you're watching the video, it does not recommend Jalen Hurts. That's an example of the intelligence built in, bypassing the actual analytics, basically, which say that Jalen Hurts, compared to the field, considering ADP and the cost, even though this is pricey, Jalen Hurts was a worthwhile pick. We can also get a feel for what we should do with our picks, clicking this advanced analytics tab. So if you're watching the video, now we're on the clock with consecutive picks, so this is a little weird. But for example, if I pass on Ramondre with these next 2 picks, I could still get a crack at J.K. Dobbins in 2 picks, which I like. I do like him. If I pass on Hurts these next 2 picks, I still have a crack at Lawrence. I like that. Deebo Samuel, if I pass on him, I can get Chris Godwin. That's a little bit of a drop-off there. Then Mandrews would be the guy to probably take with my next pick, or I can go Hawkinson. So, all right, so I've decided I'm going to go, though, running back. And I'm actually not that into Ramondre this year. I just have a weird vibe. The way he wore down last year was just so worrisome to me. So while I'm not married to anything, even my own mode here. While that is the recommendation, if you notice here, 251.5 points projected for Ramondre. Josh Jacobs is 250.5. So 1 fantasy point separating these 2 guys. They're also separated by like 2 ADP spots. I'm looking at Jamar Chase, and I just like the pairing of Jamar Chase and Josh Jacobs. So there's, I guess, tip number 1 for picking out of the 1-hole. Little worried about Josh Jacobs with this franchise tag situation and the holdout, but If you are picking at 1 or 2, you get that stud wide out, man, you feel good. Come back. I'm not saying it's a value, but in another year, a guy who did what Josh Jacobs did last year would be off the board by pick 24, but yet here he is. He's available, and we do have him projected, I believe, to have the 8th most running back touches this year. So as you see, if you're watching the video, Josh Jacobs he's in the fold on Team Gorific. Let's continue the exercise. So with my next pick, which is the very next pick of the draft, no surprise that it is recommending Mark Andrews. Tough call. I do like Andrews, but I also do like some other tight ends like Kyle Pitts. And of course, if I uncheck Hansen sits, the software loves stud tight ends. Just know that. Loves them. Probably would recommend Kelsey at 3. I actually haven't checked that, but I'm sure it would. But it does also like Jalen Hurts here, still available with my first pick, with the first pick of round number 3. I'm going, though, to go off once again. And here's another example of a little nuance. I'll bake in a little bit more of a priority to wide receiver here because it just is the way the board is set up this year, and people are just grabbing these wideouts left and right. So I think I'm going to go wide out here after going running back. You know, Debo Samuel would be the pick for me normally, but I really do love Brandon Ayuk this year, and I think I want him 2 rounds later. So, and again, this is why the software is just a guide. I'm going to go with DK Metcalf. I'm not a big DK Metcalf guy, but I'm locking in another stallion wide receiver along with Jamar Chase after getting Josh Jacobs to anchor my running back core. Let's move on to round number 4. Okay, J.K. Dobbins, as predicted. That's why we use the advanced analytics on the board, and that's the recommendation. Let's go back to the advanced analytics. Now, Trevor Lawrence, I could pass on him with these next 2 picks and still get him in the next round. So I'm definitely not going Lawrence. Why would I do that? That's what this tab is about. If I pass on Dobbins here, I can still get Rachaad White, and I love White. I could go Godwin, or if I pass on Godwin, I could get Gabe Davis. And here's the deal. I don't love this, but this is basically telling me now I could get Kyle Pitts because I love Kyle Pitts. I really love Kyle Pitts in round 5, though, not at the end of or the beginning of round 4. I like him at the end of round 5. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss him by like 1 point. So when I look through all this, I have my number 1 running back in Jacobs. I know I can get Rachaad White still after these 2 picks. I think I almost have to go with Hawkinson. So we'll uncheck that and see if the computer likes that, and it does. As you can see, that is the recommendation. Let's do it. TJ Hawkinson. Love me some Jordan Addison as a real good value pick this year, and a guy's going to probably catch 70 balls, but look how quickly TJ Hawkinson basically got off the plane and was fully integrated into the offense. And you know, I do like having the best possible starting lineup, and I like studs at every position. So I think I'm set up pretty well thus far through 4 rounds, drafting out of the 1 hole with 2, stud receivers, Jamar Chase and DK Metcalf. Got my stud running back in Josh Jacobs and my stud tight end in TJ Hawkinson, and I have yet to take a quarterback. We're up next here. Oh, did not mean to do that, and I just reset the entire draft. Well, that was an accident, but I guess we can just barrel through this puppy again. And ironically, it goes with, see, it's not the same every time. It goes through Jamar Chase. So we'll do Chase. We'll come back to where we just were. We'll get Josh Jacobs again. Cannot believe this. We'll mark back. We're up again. In round number 3, we took DK Metcalf. We're up on the clock again. We did go Hawkinson. There's that. Okay, now we're back to where we were. Here we go. We are on the clock now with first pick of round 5. Okay, J.K. Dobbins is actually still there. Let's take a look. If I pass on Dobbins, I can still get my guy Rachaad White. If I pass on Trevor Lawrence, I can still get Deshaun Watson, who I really like. So the question is, look, and Kyle Pitts, of course, like I said, this is just one pick ago where I was drafting in round 4. I could have had Kyle Pitts. So, boy, this is a tough one because there's a little bit of a drop-off here. I do have my second wide receiver. I think I would prefer to actually get my third wide receiver right here. And let me see where my guy Brandon Ayuk is, because, boy, I do love me some Brandon Ayuk this year. Let's see where Ayuk is. Round 5. Yeah, here he is. He's high up on the board. I do love Ayuk, and I do see a drop-off here. The software actually recommended was looking at Godwin and Gabe Davis, but I want Brandon Ayuk. I can't quit it. He's so dominant. I know there's only one ball there, but, man, he's still gunning for that first big payday. They pick up the 5th-year option on Ayuk. Our guy Kaplan told us last year he was a changed man, and I'm hearing this year it's continuing big time. So I am good at wide receiver in my opinion. So now I can go get my quarterback potentially. So let's take a look here. Now I can pass on Lawrence in round 6, knowing I can get Deshaun Watson. I can pass on White, but knowing I can get White again with my next pick. Or I can go, wow, this is a little tight end heavy, but I'll tell you what, I'll just play it safe with Trevor Lawrence, bring him into the fold. This is my draft plan at work in many, many ways. Went off the reservation just a little bit with DK Metcalf. He's probably not going to be one of my targets, but this is what the market is dictating, and I certainly feel fine with DK Metcalf in round number 3. So we open this thing hitting wide receiver hard. We still got a tight end stud, and the best of both worlds at quarterback. We just took Trevor Lawrence, so we opened Jamar Chase, Josh Jacobs, DK Metcalf on the hook there. Come back with Hawkinson and Ayuk. Then it's Trevor Lawrence, and now we're on the clock again. We have no need for a quarterback, and it's Rachaad White time. That is for sure. That is very clear looking at the analytics. And so we bring Rachaad White into the fold. Nice little value there as our RB2 in round number 7. Moving on. So far, this is quite gurific. This is what we're looking at. And we're on the clock here in round 8. And Hansen's Hints, at least, is recommending Brian Robinson. Let's see if there's any difference there. No, the software is also saying Brian Robinson. So fair. A little boring, but we also went 6 rounds using only one pick on a running back. This is how 2023 is shaking up and shaping up. So let's go with Brian Robinson. Get some running back depth there. We are on the clock again. Oh, wow. Recommending another running back. It's a bit much. Boy, it's liking these running backs here. So we can also toggle and show everything but the running backs. And I don't care about the kickers or the defenses. We actually remove them from the equation anyway. Oh, there it is. There it is. My guy, Sky Moore. ADP of 115, and I'm taking him here at 97. Certainly a little bit of an overpay, but not bad for a Sky Moore truther like me. That's about a round and a half over. So we bring Sky Moore into the fold here in round number 9 as our wide receiver 4. That is a perfect spot for him. Let's go back and continue this draft. We might end soon because we have gone through 9 rounds and we're up on the clock here. Round number 10. The software is going running back again, which makes sense. We certainly need some depth. It is recommending Jerick McKinnon. We can certainly sort by running back just in case to see here if you're looking at the video and sort by the next, by the available players, the most projected fantasy points. It's guys like Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, Devon Achane, Singletary, Kendre Miller. It is Jerick McKinnon. And we certainly could use a running back. Let's take a look at that advanced analytics real quick. We can still get McKinnon in a pick. So, yeah, we're looking at a lot of redundancy here in terms of, ADPs are kind of all over the map. So we'll just bring in Jerick McKinnon into the fold. They did not really do anything else at running back. Dude scored 9 receiving touchdowns last year. Round number 10, that is not too shabby. We can continue even 2 more picks here. We're on the clock right now. There he goes. And Team Gurific is adding Gurific players. Granted, some of these guys disappointed a little bit last year. Darnell Mooney in round number 11. There you go. We're rolling through and perfect. Absolutely perfect. In round 12, again, we did remove kickers and defenses from the equation. So we are just adding quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. I have my tight end 1 in Hockenson in round 4. In round number 12, it's recommending Juwan Johnson. Just in case. Let's see who the other tight ends are and sort by points. Of course, Juwan is the highest point total guy left on the board, so we'll bring him in. That's a sexy tight end too. So we are, about 150 picks into this draft here. We can see the draft report, 144 picks into the draft. This is usually around the time I wrap up the draft plan. We can go another round here. What the heck? Let's take a look. Oh, perfect. Even better. Another New Orleans Saint, another Gurific pick that I love, all in on Rashid Shaheed. So there it is. A pretty good example of how you can approach a draft, picking out of the one hole. We started with Jamar Chase. So we get that stud wide receiver, feel good about that. We then hit running back right away. We're not zero running back people. We get Josh Jacobs in the fold here. Little bit of an overpay there. Not much, 4 or 5 draft spots at 24 overall. We bang wide receiver again because there's about to be a drop-off with DK Metcalf in round number 3. Round 4, I didn't love it. But we did pass on Mandrews in round 3 to get that DK Metcalf stud number 2 receiver. I do, Kyle Pitts this year, but taking him here in round 4 is a bit of an overpay. So we kind of settle on TJ Hockenson, who, look, we have as a tight end 3, like everyone else, and he's getting a lot of love for obvious reasons. Going to get a lot of targets this year. Round number 5, by the way, we pass on Deebo Samuel in round 3 for a reason, because I love Brandon Ayuk. So we get him in round number 5. And now we're good at wide receiver. Like, we've addressed it. This is 3 picks at wide receiver out of our first 5. We come back with Trevor Lawrence. Get the quarterback, best of both worlds. I think he's got league-winning upside. Basically like this year's Joe Burrow. Let's not overthink it. Dude had 5 rushing touchdowns. I could see 4 to 5 again. 70 attempts on the ground. I think the touchdown percentage is going to rise into year 2 with Doug Peterson, with Calvin Ridley added to the mix. So we're looking at 30 passing touchdowns and 3, 4, 5 rushing touchdowns. So it's looking good. I'm loving it. My guy, Rachaad White, disrespected. Could be a bad team, but what do you want at running back on a bad team? A receiving specialist. If they're that bad, he could catch 70 balls. So this is a value for sure. Then we go right back to running back. We hit Brian Robinson. My guy, Sky Moore, I take him in round 9. I don't think that's too much of an overpay. We get him about 16 picks over the ADP. That's not too bad. We come back with Jerick McKinnon for running back depth. Darnell Mooney, very good receiver, could be properly cast now as a 2 with DJ Moore there, and he does have chemistry with Justin Fields. Come back, very Gurific, very sexy here with Juwan Johnson as our tight end 2, and we stay sexy and Gurific with Rashid Shaheed as our wide receiver 5. Very Gurific, drafting out of the one hole projected starting lineup. Quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. RB1, Josh Jacobs. RB2, Rashad White. Wide receiver 1, Jamar Chase. Wide receiver 2, DK Metcalf. Wide receiver 3, Brandon Ayuk. Tight end, TJ Hawkinson. Flex starter number 1. Let's go Brian Robinson. Flex starter 2. For a goof, let's go Sky Moore. That could be certainly Jerick McKinnon in this mix, Darnell Mooney even in this mix, or Jawan Johnson or Rashid Shaheed. Pretty darn good. A lot of good value, great balance, couple of overpays, but solid enough value for a stud quarterback and a stud tight end and a stud RB1 to go along with our stud wideout in Jamar Chase. There it is. That's going to be the podcast. We'll wrap it up here. And the video, that is a look at drafting out of the number 1 hole using my draft plan, my players to target with a little assist from the fantasy points generator. Next podcast that I'll do, we'll do this all over again out of the 2 hole. Normally I would switch to or skip the 2 hole, maybe go to 3, but I want to cover all the bases. I'm going to do an article for all 12 draft spots for those who are, maybe you get the 8th pick and you don't know. Well, there'll be an article about it. There'll be a video and a podcast about it here at fantasypoints.com. So that'll wrap it up. I'm John Hansen. We'll catch you next time here on Hansen's Hints.